Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to my review of the CRKT Homefront with field strip technology. This is the first knife that's ever been released, to my knowledge, that literally comes apart without any tools. That's really cool. And there's a lot of other really cool things about this knife that we're going to talk about during the course of this review. Of course, we're going to show you some testing with this knife, talk about how it feels in hand as you use it, talk about the design points, why I think it's pretty cool looking. We're going to compare it against a handful of other knives, show you lots of testing footage, all that good stuff. So do stick around for the duration of the review if you can. But first, let's put this knife back together and kind of demonstrate how it came apart, how it goes back together. This is kind of the big breakthrough here, and the thing that really sets this knife apart. So of course we want to cover this quickly and kind of at the beginning of the video. So it's got basically two anchor points, all right, that make it come together and or come apart. The first being, the first one I guess right here is at the pivot, which is pretty obvious how that works. You saw me actuate that, switching it that way. The second is this dial here at the back of the handle towards the bottom of the knife. And that's it. That's pretty much how it comes together and goes apart. You dial that until that stops right there. Press down, push together on the pivot. You might need to push this screw in a little bit to make sure that stays in. Just press the pivot together ever so slightly, and then there you are. The knife is reassembled, ready for carry, ready for use. It is not going to come apart on you accidentally. And again, I've used it quite a bit, so I'm positive of that. But when you need to and when you're ready to, again, taking it apart, switch that way, take that dial, undo it till you hear that click. There it is, see? The knife just literally comes apart like that. That's it, nothing else to it. Really cool. Now let's talk, before we get into some of the design features, let's talk about why you would need a knife that can field strip like this. What's the purpose for it? Well, I'll talk about that in just a second. But let's first talk about why I think this is a cool technology and why, what I'm kind of hoping for the future with CRKT's field strip technology. This, by the way, designed by Ken Onion. There's his signature right there, his logo. So designed in conjunction with CRKT, and what I hear is they've been working on this knife for a long time. My buddy Ben over at Blade HQ actually worked at CRKT for a while, and that's one little tidbit he let me in on, is that this was something that was in development for pretty much the entire time he was there. So they spent their time, a lot of time, perfecting this. That's really cool. I mean, thinking about that alone, that this is a huge engineering feat to build a knife that can come apart with absolutely no tools. That's super cool. So that alone gets me really excited. And one of the things I'm really stoked about is the potential for this technology to be applied to lots of different designs over time. I think that'd be awesome. What if they had like an entire line of CRKT knives that all had field strip technology built into them? I mean, that's like, to throw out another one, the cold steel triad lock. Right here, we have the code 4. Cold steel triad lock is something they've added to so many of their knives, and it's a great lock. But if you can imagine CRKT putting this field strip technology into a huge array of their knives in the future, that would be awesome, dude. I'd love that. So that right there alone, I'm totally stoked about that, or the potential for that. We'll see if it actually happens. Why, again, would you need a knife that can take apart this quickly, this easily? Well, I've talked about this in the past with other knives, and let me just pull one out of the knife drawer here. This is the Zon Knives ZKC D01, and one of the things I said that I really liked about this knife was the fact that it had a big, fat, flathead screwdriver pivot here. So you could literally disassemble this knife with a multi-tool or any screwdriver that you happen to have. Super cool. I love that. Just about every other knife I've got, Torx driver at the pivot and at every other point. Right? It's not the worst. It's not bad. In fact, I've got Torx kits, so it's fine actually. But to be able to take that down with ordinary tools, I love that. And how much cooler is it to be able to take your knife down with no tools at all? well, I think that's very cool. That's not to say it doesn't have a Torx adjustment pivot right there. And that helps you to tighten up the pivot if you're not happy with the centering, if you're not happy with the action, etc. And you can see that the centering on this one is a little bit off, and that's only because it is a little bit loose in the pivot right now. I could tighten that quarter turn, half turn, something like that, and I would get that dead center. The downside to doing that is it becomes a little more difficult to actuate the release right here on the pivot and actually take the knife down. It's still possible, but it is a little bit harder. So for cleaning, for maintenance, all that type of stuff, I love that you can take this knife down with no tool. The fact that you can have this as a camper, as a hiker, as a member of the military, whatever, have this in harsh conditions, and then be able to deal with it, take it apart, put it back together, wash it, clean it, etc., reassemble it with no tools out in the field wherever you are. That, again, is awesome. I mean, that's what we do with our guns, etc., in order to get cleaning done. We don't generally rely on tools to take them down to the point that we can clean them. They generally come apart in the way that they need to without the use of tools. And that applies to virtually every gun I own. And to apply that now to a knife, again, groundbreaking and, in my opinion, very, very cool. So I think I've expressed why I think it's a valid technology and why I'm excited about that technology in general. Let's get on to the design. You can see some pretty cool military cues in here in the way that it's sort of put together, that awesome little star at the pivot. That's one of my favorite features right there. I heard somebody say that this is one of the least Ken Onion looking Ken Onion knives that they've seen. And they said that in a good way. I love Ken's designs, and I've got a handful of them here. There's one more on the table right there. This is the Shenanigan, that's right. But they've got a very, very similar kind of a look and feel to them. And you can generally recognize a Ken Onion design at first glance because they are very organic looking. And I think you get what I mean by that. Very sweeping lines and very curvaceous in a way. They're sexy and cool looking. Again, I like Ken's designs a lot. But you generally recognize them right away. If you set these two knives side by side right here and you said which one's the Ken Onion, you go, oh, well, that one. You'd be wrong because they're both Ken Onions, but you generally wouldn't associate this design with Ken Onion because it is so, I guess, straightforward, might be a way of putting it. There's a lot about it that's, it departs a little bit from his sort of trademark design cues in a way that I think will appeal to a lot of people. Not to say that I don't like his trademark designs. I think they're cool looking, as I said before. But again, this is something very different from him as far as design is concerned. Straight aluminum on the handles, and you can see some cool texturing on there as well. Does it help with grip? A tiny bit. Not really grippy. It's just mostly aesthetics right there. All the grip you get is really here on the back strap and also built into the jimping right here on the aluminum. That's generally and a little bit here on the choil as well. So that's generally the grippiness that you get. You can see that the pocket clip is more or less one position. So not set up to be swapped in any way, shape, or form. That's just what you get. Otherwise, construction, very simple. You can see that the spacer is held on to just the one side and probably locked in here as well. Again, very cool. Very simple construction, as I said before. But guys, it takes a long, long time to engineer something to the point where it can be this simple in construction, this few parts, and still be able to take down with no tools. Again, can't tell you how impressed I am. Liner lock, obviously, on it, and nice smooth action on it. You saw that the washers were more or less Teflon. No phosphor bronze or anything like that in there. Certainly not a ball bearing pivot. You wouldn't be able to, maybe someday, but as of right now, there's no way to put a ball bearing pivot into a knife that breaks down like this one does with no tools and so easily. But otherwise, just a very well constructed knife. The price comes in at around $100. So you might say that's kind of high for what it is. AUS 8 steel on it. The weight, 4.8 ounces, according to my spec sheet. Let's go ahead and confirm that, actually. See what my scale is telling me. 4.8. Well, all right. Guess my scale works. So I don't know, the weight could be a little heavy to some. I've carried it a lot. I feel like it's actually a pretty decent weight. It's not hard to tote around, and it's actually pretty comfortable in pocket, very comfortable in hand. Fills the hand very nicely. You can get lots of good work done with it. Speaking of work that I've gotten done with it, as I said before, I was going to show you some testing of this knife. Did the standard stuff. I like to test the edge, demonstrate the edge with some paper slicing, which it did a pretty good job of. Of course, did some cardboard slicing as well. Didn't find any ergonomic issues with that. Found that it worked very nicely. The edge geometry on it is great. It has a hollow grind to it with that cool little fuller in there. And so it's very, as far as geometry is concerned, it's got a great profile to it. Great for getting work done. And then in addition to that, rather than just carving away at wood like I've done before, kind of digging into it and pulling off big chunks of a 2x4, what I decided to do with this and a handful of other knives was work on a carving project. And that carving project is this one right here. A spoon that I made out of a block of pine that was would have been used for a Pinewood Derby card eventually, but we had a few extras laying around, so we turned one into a spoon, and that's a look at that. Did also carve out the bowl just using a knife, and you'll see more of that in a future video. But the Ken Onion CRKT Homefront was used for a good portion of this spoon right here, carving away a good, quite a bit at it. And I found as I tried to get that spoon into lots of different positions and carve from lots of different directions, I found that it worked great for doing that kind of fine detailed work. Had no issues with it. Didn't find it to be cumbersome or weird in any way. It just works. Just a couple more specs, and then we'll get into the comparison with a handful of other knives. Blade length of 3.5 inches, handle length of 4.75, overall 8.125. Good size in my opinion, especially for the weight. Once again, 4.8 ounces. Taiwan is where it's built, is where it's put together. A lot of CRKT knives are in fact built overseas, so that's kind of comes with the territory. If I didn't mention it, AUS 8 steel. And just a good-looking blade overall. Let's go ahead and line that up with a handful of other good-looking blades. So there's a Homefront right around, what did I say, $100, a little over $100 maybe. Here's one for close to that. Spyderco Manix 2. Anybody out there like the Manix 2? I think it's a pretty nice blade. This one from my buddy Joe Carden. And that's going to be kind of a little heavier than the Homefront, in my opinion, I believe. I don't have the specs handy, but I believe that's a little bit heavier than the Homefront. Then we'll throw in one more Ken Onion CRKT design. Once again, there's the Shenanigan. You saw that before. Really close in size, but very kind of different looking design-wise. You saw this one a second ago as well. The Cold Steel Code 4. And that's a good bit less than either of these two, I believe. And the Shenanigan, you can get that for a song these days. They're, I think, $30, 20. I think I might have gotten this one on sale for right around $30. And so you can find them pretty readily around that price, I think, nowadays. Here's one for quite a bit more money, but also very, very nice. That is what's the name of the steel again? It's the 551 Griptilian in CPM 20 CV. Really nice blade. Really good steel, and that's about how it stacks up to all the others. We're going to throw one more in just because I don't know that it's totally related to what you're looking at here, but this is a little preview of something coming up. This is the CRKT Crossbones. Look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous knife? This one designed by, I can't remember his first name. Last name Park. I should have looked his name up before this. Dang it, I'll put it in annotation. Anyway, I believe this guy works closely with Ken Onion, and this is his first CRKT produced knife that I'm aware of. And it's a beauty. It is a real beauty. This one's sent by CRKT to me for testing and review, and just a super, super nice knife. We'll talk about this one a lot more in the future. Again, the aesthetics on it, it's a really stands out. So there's a little bit of a look at some knives that compare very favorably against the Homefront. In no case do any of them take down as quickly and as easily as the Homefront does, which is why, once again, this knife stands out as something really groundbreaking. And I want to reiterate that. I think this technology alone is incredibly groundbreaking. I wouldn't expect less from CRKT. They're always doing unusual, very cool things, working with awesome designers. So the knife designs that they come out with, whether through CRKT or CRKT Ruger or whatever, just so cool looking, so interesting, and to give people a chance to get their hands on relatively affordable knives from top quality designers. And that's one thing I just love about CRKT. I didn't mention this at the beginning. They did send me the Homefront maybe 6 months ago for review. I love that they're also very patient with me as I take my time in testing their knives. But that's about it, guys. This is CRKT Homefront. I'm the Late Boy Scout. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.